Hey everyone, welcome to Ink Scribes, the comics podcast where we discuss the art and craft of comics. I'm Colin Singh, an aspiring artist and lifelong student of the craft. I'm joined by my co-hosts Eric Zawadzki and Taylor Stauft.
Hey, I'm Taylor Stauft. I'm the artist for From Fire and Blood, a Jason Zhang adventure available for Kickstarter right now under the Dauntless Showcase #1. Link is down below. Please go and at least subscribe or to follow Dauntless or ideally donate to it. You can get my book and a bunch of others.
And I'm the artist of Assorted Crisis Events from Image Comics. It's an ongoing series. And I think it's pretty neat. So I'd appreciate anybody who checks it out.
It's great.
But what do we got going on today, Colin?
All right, so today we got a very special episode. We're going to be looking at the cover work of Michael Golden. He is one of the greatest cover artists of all time, so that's why obviously we're covering him. And we're also going to be looking at basically his cover compositions and stuff like that, and what makes him the greatest comic artist of all time, of course.
Yeah, I'm not super confident with my knowledge of composition. There's like 100 different rules. It feels like it can be a little overwhelming, and I haven't really cemented a lot of those rules in my head. How about you guys? How confident are you guys with composition?
I think you're more confident than more than you know. I think it's you just don't have the specifically the vocabulary. I think all of us just don't have the technical vocabulary for it. I remember being in drawing 1 and my professor saying the rules, I wouldn't call them rules, and then just kind of giving us a basic sketch of it.
Yeah, I took some courses in university, art history courses and whatnot, and learned a lot of those terms and a lot of those rules and whatnot. But I mean, what sticks and what doesn't, I don't want to sound smarter than I actually am. But I do go back to those things when I look at covers and stuff like that. I can see, if I look into what, say, the golden ratio is, I can apply it to Michael Golden's artwork almost 100% of the time. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of these rules are sort of internalized in us, but it doesn't mean we can necessarily sort of vocalize them as you said, Taylor. So I think the key here is that we want to improve on this, and that's probably what this episode is about, where we sort of cement a lot of this knowledge by looking at one of the best cover artists who's ever worked in comics. So I scoured the internet and I tried to find as many covers by Michael Golden as I could possibly find. It's pretty comprehensive. We've got a lot here, and I'm sure I missed a fair amount. So please chime in the comments if you know of any glaring omissions.
Yeah, Eric's compiled roughly almost, I say, 300 covers. So we're pretty much going to be going through all of them. Not that we're going to skip anything, but you will see them all usually, pop up on the screen. So for myself, I'm gonna front load it. I'm gonna let everyone know that the Punisher stuff, if I could take one chunk of his career, it's the Punisher covers. I'll take them with me, because that work is probably it's the best thing I've ever seen in comic form when depicting the Punisher, besides Dave Johnson and Goran Parlov. But yeah, this is the Punisher in my head when I read a Punisher comic, or when
I would say the Punisher covers in this episode are the main attraction.
Yeah, 100%. This is the movie trailer stuff if you want to look at Michael Golden's career, in my mind.
You say that, but I don't know. Chris Starr, the Crystal Warrior, really stood out to me. So, we're going to try to stick to 6 basic rules. Rule of thirds, focal point, visual balance, visual weight, contrast, and leading lines. All things that I think were drilled into all of us from various rejected portfolios at one point or another.
Yeah, so I would recommend people watching along. Yeah, that list of stuff that Taylor mentioned, try to be on the lookout for that stuff as well in all these covers. And it'll hopefully cement it in your mind as well.
And if there's any glaring omissions in that list, any properties, let us know in the comments, because the vocabulary is important for us to know. So let us know.
Okay, yeah. So first up, like very early on in his career, this actually is the book that made him a fan favorite. Michael Golden was at DC before this, and this was his first Marvel book. And yeah, this is where he became a star. He has not done a huge amount of interior art. He did like 12 issues of Micronauts, and then a couple of famous Marvel Fanfare, and he did 12 issues or 11 issues of the Nam, and then a whole bunch of sporadic stuff here and there.
Talk about focal point.
Did he do ROM Space Knight, or he just did covers for ROM Space
I
Knight?
think he just did covers, but I don't know. We're all 90s kids, so like this is a generation before us. So I revere Michael Golden stuff, and he actually influenced all the artists that we grew up on. He was one of the biggest influences for 90s art. But yeah, Taylor, you mentioned focal point.
Yeah, like these right away. What is your eye drawn to? The center.
Yeah, like so when talking about composition, I would encourage people to always ask themselves, like, where is my eye going? So like right away on this first cover, your eye is going right to that face in the middle, the leading man, the main star, I guess. And why do you suppose that is? I guess it's the dead center part.
It's the center, but it's also in a like there are leading lines towards it. The fingers, the gun blast, all the explosions, and I think because it's not. It's a straight on shot, but like the head is tilted back. He's kind of to the side. Like it's a dynamic pose for the character as well.
And in number 2, same thing with the sword and the shaft of the lawnmower and the arm. Even though the arm is pointing, like obviously the hand is pointing away from the center, the line itself applies to bringing all the tension to the center, right? The center
because
being the
lines,
blades on the
they go both
grass
ways.
cutter. Yeah.
And the danger therein.
And another thing we want to talk about is visual weight. So size equals power. So if we look at both of these, who is the most powerful in both of these images?
Yeah, it's the guys right in the back.
Yeah.
This is an interesting challenge for Golden, considering it's a book called Micronauts. Everybody, like, you have to communicate these guys are small while also demonstrating, but they are the heroes, so you should pay attention to them.
Yeah, I haven't actually read Micronauts. Have you guys?
No, I've only read descriptions.
It wasn't. Yeah,
it's before our time.
I never really, even when I was, getting into Michael Golden, I never really seeked them out. They weren't really a priority to me. I knew it was kind of hokey.
But, I want to track them down. They were revered, these comics.
I would like, they are
on
eBay. I have pondered getting a run off eBay, but
I want to say they're part of that
never
run
pulled the trigger
of properties that kept Marvel afloat for a while between Micronauts, G.I. Joe, and Star Wars. It was like these licensed properties are keeping the lights on.
I think this is the first time Marvel did a toy line as a series of comics, which I guess is a prelude to G.I. Joe, which became just like a juggernaut, a runaway success.
Hey, just off topic though. I mean, I just want to ask, what did DC have for property wise in the 70s, 80s? Because Marvel had Star Wars, Transformers, G.I. Joe. They had
Star Trek, maybe.
Yeah,
Star Trek,
and they just had the entire Warner Brothers cartoon library as well, so that might have kept them busy, kept them full.
They also were in a different position due to the DC implosion in 78. Like they had to really go into self-preservation mode, cut a bunch of stuff, promote what they have. I don't know that there was time for them or money for them to get licenses for a bit.
So I guess with a book like Micronauts, visual weight for a compositional element is probably the biggest thing when it comes to the size of a character equaling power and just showing a villain against them. That's a recurring theme we see in all of these is the antagonist is always much bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, and the amount of shadows, spot blacks on the character as well. Like that's when I think of visual weight, I also think of these heavy blacks that draw your eye to it.
Yeah, because visual weight can also
Well,
be
like for number
size,
7,
color, position, a dominant element of some kind. And yeah, the blacks are a dominant
Yeah.
element.
but yeah, for number 7 with Man Thing, like the black, it's almost like you're staring into the abyss again. It's in the center of the cover, right?
Yeah, like the face is just coming out of this shadow. It's a really good use of shading too, just because it's a lot more cloak like than you would expect from Man Thing.
And on issue 8, where does your eye like immediately go?
Oh, right to Captain Universe, right
Yeah,
there.
you got a lot of the leading lines, and you have him surrounded by white, where there's so
Yeah, the
much
negative
darkness
space.
around. But yeah, here we have contrast. So what is contrast? It's like a juxtaposition of different elements like color, shape, texture to create visual interest and emphasize difference and enhance the overall impact of the artwork. So tremendous amount of detail in the edges of this with all these figures.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of negative space surrounding our heroes. And so they really pop out.
Yeah, and the color is doing a great job to then draw your eye to them even more. Like red, green, gold, all colors completely absent from the crowd.
And you can tell he does take the logo itself, like the top title header, into consideration for all his compositions. So
Mhm.
how much space he can leave out for, how much he can leave out, or he can conveniently do it so it's easier for him because the logo is going to do a lot of the top third of the work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because I was just thinking too that these need to lead you not just at like it's supposed to grab your attention on a newsstand at this time, but it's also supposed to lead you into the book. So you get things like Micronauts 9, the spear like thing that the green bug guy is holding is like gesturing you like keep going that way. Keep going. You want to see what else is
So that would
inside.
be a leading line, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. I think it's more prevalent in a comic page because it's got to lead you to the next panel or page. But so this is like trying to compel you into a page turn just to start the story.
Now looking at this is Kirby shading, right? The shading on all the bad guys here. This was his first Marvel book, so he was encouraged to embrace a Kirby-like approach. And
oh, that's interesting.
yeah, because his stuff before this wasn't necessarily influenced by Kirby, but I mean, you could see the very specific way that he's shading these figures is very Kirby-esque.
I associate it with Walt Simonson, but you bring it up, and like obviously Simonson would have taken it from Kirby.
Oh
right?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the last 2 issues, and talk about contrast on this issue 12.
Yeah.
The background has a lot less color information compared to the foreground, and so you focus on that main figure.
And number 11, the use of red contrasting with green, like those two green figures pop. Just because I don't know what the technical term is.
Well, it's like warm versus cool. Like you put
complementary colors.
Complementary colors. That's what it is. Yeah. Like they vibrate when they're together.
Oh yeah.
They visually vibrate is what I've heard it described as, and that always stuck with me. Whereas the number 12 is it's more about like detail and roundness and volume and the directionality of that dick-shaped sword pointing right at him.
That's something you want to avoid.
Depends on what kind of series you're trying to sell.
A Marvel comic.
A
12-cent
one. So that's or a 40-cent one. So that's got to be. These have got to be what, mid 70s, 74, 75.
Oh, this is the 80s. This is.
Is it?
Yeah, this was the 80s, bro.
So in the late 70s, he was at DC, and then he worked his way to Marvel in the 80s. Actually, he was Michael Golden was like the senior art director in the early 1980s at Marvel, from 81 to 82. yeah, and then I guess he shifted over to doing freelance.
Huh.
But yeah, here's a
Wow.
ROM Space Knight cover. And Saga of Crystar, Crystal Warrior. I don't know what this series
Hell
is.
yeah.
What is this series?
That's a good question. I think it's a sword and sorcery sort of thing.
But it's a licensed property, right? Like this is not owned by Marvel anymore.
Yeah, it was associated with a toy line from Remco consisting of 7 figures and some vehicles and accessories. Yeah, it's like
There's
a
only 11
He-Man.
issues, right? 11?
Yeah. It's like a
Didn't
He-Man
last
sort
a
of
year.
fantasy sci-fi thing
Yeah.
going on. But when it's in Marvel, unless contracts stated otherwise, they could go into the Marvel universe. You get Doctor Strange just showing up.
Yeah,
And
that was kind of
Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
A lot.
that was a bit of a mandate. Like that was something that actually bothered Michael Golden about Micronauts, is that he wanted it to be its own thing, but then there became a mandate of like introduce Marvel characters into a lot of this stuff, and that sort of turned him off, and that's one of the reasons why he left. And so yeah, you get a lot of these licensed properties in, and you want Doctor Strange and the X-Men interacting with all of them, because they're
there's a reason they put.
Yeah, I remember Spider-Man being on the cover of a Transformers comics too. I didn't really get any of the Transformers comics as a kid, but
I remember from the.
I remember he was.
I think it's American Comic Book Chronicles from Tomorrow's. They in the 70s they mentioned that I think it's like the 3rd issue of each series, new series in the 70s. They're like, if you can and you will, get Spider-Man in there, because that'll bump those numbers up. It'll kind of beat the 2nd or 3rd issue lag
slump.
And yeah, and the Spider-Man head logo is on each of these.
Yeah, for the direct edition, because that's the distinction between the newsstand and the direct. The newsstand had a barcode.
Okay.
But interestingly, this is kind of the old-fashioned approach to doing covers, and then by the time you get to issue 4 and 5, he's going fully painted.
Yeah, this is very Sienkiewicz-y to me.
Yeah, probably before, or maybe around the same time, Sienkiewicz started doing painted work for Marvel. But
yeah, definitely during his experimental phase, right?
Yeah, and this is probably reproduced terribly. Like if we saw the original, I'm sure it looks much different than this, because the printing was not the best back then. But which we'll see a little bit later, I think, in this some Conan covers that he did, where we see how it printed and then what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a famous Crystar cover, and where is it? Right here. Do you guys know much about Glenn Danzig?
Mother. Yeah. I know some.
So
he's the seer of the Misfits.
Yeah. So do you know the Glenn Danzig band logo?
No.
No, it's not coming.
Well, it was taken from this issue 8 cover.
Really?
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
I'm sure you're bringing it up on the screen now.
In what way?
It's kind of hidden there, but look in the background of the bottom of issue 8.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of, it doesn't like immediately show itself, but
yeah, the skull thing.
Yeah.
This one, these two really stood out to me. I was like, fuck, I got to get some Crystar, the Crystal Warrior, because this looks rad. Like, this just looks like that. There's that period in the late 70s, early 80s when sword and sorcery were just all the rage. And they were just pushing, huge muscles, huge boobs, fighting dragons, camaraderie.
Even Steve Ditko and Wally Wood, they did a series for DC called Creeper. It was a fantasy series.
Yep.
So it's bad, but it's good because it's Ditko and Wood, but it's bad because it's bad. It's bad. When you're reading it, you're like, this is not. No, it's bad.
because that's during his real. Is that his objectivist phase?
Was
Or I
that a
guess all of his
phase?
life was his. Yeah, I
I
guess
don't
that's his
remember
whole
the
life.
story. It's just even the covers were really just. It's obviously a guy holding a sword on the cover, and his
Rad.
eyes are red.
Bodacious. Hell yeah.
Acid trip,
So
big time acid
with
trip
this
looking
issue 8
stuff.
cover, do you guys get a slight Frank Frazetta influence, like that
Oh
famous
yeah.
Conan,
Yeah,
just but more actiony?
100%.
It's that and Al Williamson doing Flash Gordon stuff too.
Oh right.
Mm-hmm.
Like the sort of thing that that Lucas swiped from for Star Wars. Because if you'll remember that one of those early, a lot of those early Star Wars posters had like Luke in a similar pose with Princess Leia like wrapped around his leg, sometimes gun in hand, sometimes
You're right.
scared out of her mind,
Yeah.
but always like ass and titties popping.
Do you see like a triangle composition in this kind of Frank Frazetta-esque for both of these, maybe?
I mean, it draws you to the
Yeah.
top, yeah, with the wide
Yeah.
base,
100% for
yeah,
both.
especially number 9,
And
I think.
it's interesting though they shrank the logo down. He really wanted to make number 9 work, I think, or he just
Hell
something
yeah.
came to him that he made the decision to crop the logo down to just the corner there.
He probably drew that awesome dragon skull boat and thought, I can't cover this up. It's too awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have 10 and 11. And
I just want to point out 10 is a great example of using diagonal lines to communicate movement. The legs, especially, they're just they're crisscrossing. It's giving the feeling of dynamism.
Yeah. And what do you think of the background? Because it looks like he kind of overlaid his
It's kind
drawing
of
onto a painted background.
like almost like he took acrylic ink or something and just kind of let it kind of sifted it around on a canvas or something.
So special double-sized last issue. I guess it wasn't a big hit, this series.
Rip to the final fate of Kristar, the Crystal Warrior, yeah.
Because like Micronauts and
It's
ROM went on for a while, G.I. Joe went on for a while, and yeah, I guess this one did not hit.
I have to find out why the B-list members of Alpha Flight, Canada's premier superhero team, are supposed to be a draw on this cover.
Well, Alpha Flight, when it came out, was a huge hit. I think it was Alpha Flight number
Was
1
it?
was one of the highest selling first
Oh.
issues around that time. I think John Byrne made a lot of money just off issue 1. So
Oh, great. I do like their positioning, though. It's centering you on them, but they're clearly not the focus either. Kristar and whoever this glowing volcano guy is are your main focus. But then, bam, Alpha Fight pops up.
going back to like visual weight and size equals power.
Yeah.
I guess like they're the main characters, so they're taking precedence over the guest stars.
Mm-hmm. Who are colored? I don't know. Are the colors on Alpha Flight more vibrant or something? What's going on? Or maybe it's just the contrast between all of the red on Kristar.
Well, and to be fair, like I found a lot of these images on Google, and some of them are just like bad scans, or some of them are official scans, and so it's a mix and match. Like for instance, these look like they're official Marvel scans because the line work is just crisp. But yeah, he did a couple of covers of the Defenders.
I love the Defenders 94 with everything just kind of sloping down towards Doctor Strange.
Right, your eye is like going from the top left corner down to these figures, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, I guess she's the antagonist. Is that supposed to be Hellcat?
It must
she's surrounded
be, right?
by a lot of visual information, but the color kind of like puts it further in the background.
Yeah.
So that causes her to pop, I guess, because the heroes, I guess, are surrounded by a lot of color and a lot of visual information. And yeah, so would you say your eye focuses directly on her?
My eye focuses on Doctor Strange just because the cloak of
The
levitation
red.
is in contrast with the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah, I was
she
going to say the same
does
thing.
lead
Yeah.
you down to Doctor Strange, right? Because you do start at the top left and move right in a zigzag. So
Yeah.
in the West anyway. So I do think her being at that top left point, it just naturally leads you down into everything else. Plus, like it's a hand. It
Yeah,
looks like that they're
crazy.
in.
The hand with
So there's like the kind of cup shape that also encourages you to focus on whatever's in the center of it.
that is crazy. It's a hand with like demon heads or the tips of the fingers. It's very creative.
Yeah,
Like those little
And then
goblin
for
things
the
you could buy to put on your fingertips at the dollar
yeah,
store.
and then Defenders 96, we get a very clear, very obvious triangle composition.
oh yeah. Yeah, focus at the top and then go down to the base.
And I think Michael Golden colored all this stuff himself. So very deliberate choice to have the background elements colored as one complete color, and then the foreground have a little bit more variety.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he's famous for probably Doctor Strange, Rogue. Like I think those are his two most famous characters. That like when he goes to conventions and people ask for commissions, it's like those two characters that he gets a lot of.
Did he do Doctor Strange interiors?
He did a very
Yeah, he did.
famous issue 55.
Oh,
So
okay.
the cover on the right here is like probably one of the most influential, from an artistic standpoint, one of the most influential comics, I mean, of the decade, maybe of
Yeah.
all time. Like it influenced a decade of artists.
Yeah.
The image generation was deeply affected by that particular issue, which we should look at
Okay.
sometime.
Yeah.
I do remember that story about how he was supposed to make Rogue look like Grace Jones, but he didn't know who Grace Jones was, so that's why she ended up.
Yeah, he says he was a little out of touch with the culture at that time, and then he got a script, and the Chris Claremont specified, and this villain will look like Grace Jones, and then he
Just made it up.
He's just like, I don't know who that is, and then just drew Rogue, and then later on found out like, oh, she was supposed to be black.
Yeah.
You'd think they would have sent that back, but
Well, I mean, like it was already drawn. Like that was the Marvel method. Is you just
yeah,
get a
that's true.
description,
Yeah.
and then the writer gets the art back and goes like, oh, the story's going in this direction. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he did this X-Men companion. This is famous. This cover.
Yeah.
I've seen
That's
it
a
homage
beaut.
several times. Like yeah, Arthur Adams did a
Yeah.
version of this. It's interesting because it was when it was actually printed, they got rid of the Sentinels.
Well, I'm sure this artwork's been reused over and over again too. I don't think it was just used for this, especially for the cutting stuff out. Like there it must have been printed in its true form at one point or another. No, even as a poster or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Commenters, please let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, where would that even appear? It looks like it should be just a bonus material in a in the X-Men Companion 1,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I will say, probably one of the most famous type of X-Men commission you can get from an artist is, insert X-Men character with a broken Sentinel. It's like
Right.
it's so prevalent, and this might be a huge influence on that thinking. Like, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it's one of the first times it started to be a thing. He's responsible for. It's definitely a composition, not just that
an
composition, but like using a hand, like somebody like X-Men standing on a hand, or just the head, stuff like that. Definitely, this lended to that.
Yeah.
No, it is interesting because when it's black and white, like the the figures kind of get drowned out by that Sentinel. It does create a lot of visual mess. Like, clearly he created this with the intent that it will be colored, and then those elements will be made more distinct. But just as a black and white image, what do you guys think of like the contrast, and like where does your eye immediately focus on?
I immediately
The
go to the BAMF in the
yeah,
center.
Oh, okay, yeah. So balance is an important part that we want to talk about as well, which is sort of where your eye rests and where it like focuses on detail. And so negative space blending with detail is an important element, and that BAMF is a lot of black and then a lot of white around it.
And a lot of white inside it.
Yeah.
I wonder if we're going to start to see. So in his early Marvel work, like there is that drawn to the center principle used over and over again. Maybe he gravitates away from that because his Punisher covers are a lot more just like running diagonal lines and a lot more golden ratio type stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and
whereas other principles start being applied to like his later work, just as a change, maybe just a creative change. He needed a change. You know, he liked to challenge himself in other ways.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he takes a look at stuff and thinks, "Oh, that could have been. You know what I'd do different next time? I'd use the rule of thirds or something. You know." But
all the greatest artists, there's a restlessness,
yeah,
a constant need to stave off boredom, and the same old.
You're right though about the visual mess. Man, it is so hard to because the Sentinels are so they're either shiny and smooth with the effect being applied, or they're filled with mechanical greebles, and that next to like Wolverine with all of his arm hair, all of his body hair, boy, it just gets so drowned out. You're like, who am I looking at? Hold on, let me zoom in.
And I'd imagine that would eventually become a challenge for him because he's a very technically focused artist when it comes to machinery. Like the best, most accurate guns that you will ever see an artist draw, Michael Golden will do. Like just machinery and just technical objects in general. And so when you're getting really detailed technical stuff and then putting detailed figures in as well, you have to find a way to find that balance, to find the rest versus detail, where you're resting your eye versus where you're putting detail.
Yeah.
So here's an Indiana Jones cover he did.
Great. I can't believe they don't still make these. This is the perfect time, Marvel. You own the character.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
I think Ali Williamson did some work for that too, right?
I think so, yeah.
The Indiana Jones work. Yeah.
So this King Arthur series is like a three, like they connect together. So that's we only have two up on the screen, but you can see that they're meant to connect, which is fun.
Yeah, because you get like diagonal, triangle, diagonal.
Yeah, you're right. So yeah,
it's funny because you can never put those perfectly together, right? Because they're so much cropped out.
Yeah,
when they're printed.
That's the imperfection.
I remember
of printing.
The Battle Chasers #4 came with 4 covers that if you on the back
I remember
cover,
that.
They all connected for a giant Joe Chiodo Red Monica painting, and it does not. You have to kind of space them out. You have to you can't just butt them all together. You have to space them out a little bit. Then you kind of see it. You're like, oh yeah, okay. that line connects.
I wonder if that's been improved upon with printing these days, or if that's just perpetually a problem.
Boy, you'd hope so, right?
Because I also remember the Travis Charest New Horizon covers just did not match up either.
That's right, yeah.
So here are some fun Hulk covers, and a lot of this stuff is out of order because this looks like it came out a little bit earlier than some of this stuff. Because you can see an evolution in how he's like lighting the figure, and this it feels like with this stuff he like made a bit of a jump, and then this feels like some early '80s stuff. Well, yeah, copyright 1979 and 1980s. So this was some of his earliest Marvel covers. But yeah, there's some interesting things going on here with this second cover where he takes a lot of these soldiers or antagonists and puts a lot of heavy blacks on them, which is similar to what he did with like this here. So we're getting some tropes here, I guess, where like background elements, he puts a lot of blacks on them to sort of disappear them into the background.
I feel like the X-Men one feels more like they're actually there, though. In this, it feels almost ghost-like. Like, are these guys actually there? Or
Yeah,
are
good
they? Or
call.
is it the suggestion of them? I do also want to point out the use of the rule of thirds. I'm pretty sure. Let us know if I'm wrong. But the rule of thirds for the 248 cover, with the placement of Hulk's fists and the whatever wizard that is, all kind of at the thirds crossing line points.
Right. Now, that's something interesting, which is just like when you're utilizing the rule of thirds, is the logo's got to take up like quite a bit of that. And so you have to
Yeah,
work with the logo
I want to
and
say you
create a
got to drop out.
compositional.
Yeah, you got to drop it out as far as what's up there. You can't. You just kind of have to disregard. That's not really part of the image.
Yeah. And leading lines. We've got leading lines leading into that antagonist. And to the as a colorist, he further created more focus on that bad guy by putting a lot of white on him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the glowing emanation, like the face getting dropped, part of the detail on the face getting dropped out.
Because that's an interesting
Yeah,
choice. There's like 1,000 ways you can color this, and he very deliberately made it white to, I guess, contrast a very colorful comic. Because you got the orange on the top, and you got the green on the bottom. You got a bit of purple, and then also red. Like what does red symbolize in color? What emotion does red evoke?
yeah, the rage of the
It
Hulk.
evokes danger. Like
Yeah,
whenever you see red on film or just in general, it's supposed to be like a red alert kind of effect.
yeah, and the visual overload of all the, well, not overload, but it is quite detailed. The all of the vines ensnaring the Hulk, like that's, he's not dropping any of that out. So dropping it out further back, which is another good use of. It's another good technique to use to imply something is farther back when you drop detail and line weight down.
Right. Yes, which is contrast basically,
Yeah.
juxtaposing and balance as well. Balance is rest versus detail, where your eyes rest versus where there's detail. And then we have some She-Hulk covers. So he very specifically he has said that he likes doing story-based covers.
Right.
There's kind of two approaches that an editor generally wants. They either want a very story-specific cover, or they want an iconic image, something that can end up on a poster and can be universally appreciated. He's more in the camp of the story. Like he wants to know, what is this comic about? And
When is this from?
so 19. It's going to copyright 1980 for both of these.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure where it's placed, but like there's something going on with the arms of She-Hulk that are they too long? What's going on?
Oh, I don't know.
And I'm not saying I don't like it, because that is because it's an interesting. It's an interesting.
She's got the giant extensor muscles on her
Yeah.
forearms. That's throwing you off.
Okay. So it's just like it's
Yeah.
not quite meeting reality,
Or maybe too much. It's making reality too much.
right.
I've seen people with giant forearms like that, with like a stick poking out of them, connected to their shoulders.
Huh. Okay.
Popeye, right?
Yeah.
It's the Popeye look. Yeah.
And
Walking into a gym, I'm looking for that Popeye look. Who can help me out with that?
and it is interesting seeing this stuff because the detailing on the figure work is more stylized, and I think there's this thing that happens where when you get better and better as an artist, you kind of iron out your style, because they say there's a saying that style is everything you're doing wrong. And so as you become a better artist and more technically better at drawing muscles and drawing the human form and just drawing anything and everything, you're just sort of like chipping away at your style. And this is a very unique look. And his later stuff is a lot less stylized and more, I don't know, accurate, which we
Hmm.
will see coming up. Because yeah, this is early on in his career. He only just showed up in the late 70s.
That is a wild effect being produced on She-Hulk number 10 there.
Yeah, is that
What?
called like discordance? Where
I,
it is vibrating a little bit, where it's like the blue and the
yeah.
orange are just sort of like yeah, I don't know. It's doing something funny to my brain.
Yeah. Cuz it's a cuz it comes from blue is a primary color and then the other two primary colors have been combined to create orange. So
Mm.
it's the inverse of blue. But it's oh, yeah, it's hard to look at, right? It's
Yeah.
what's going on here?
And that's an interesting effect that wasn't used too much back in like 1980, because you had to basically think of it as Photoshop layers before Photoshop existed. You had to have two
Right.
different pieces of original art, and then you had to put one on an overlay, and yeah,
Hmm.
and then the printer had to use a different plate or something to print it.
Oh my
So
god. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was. I'm sure it was a hassle to do, but yeah, it made the cover stand out because not a
Mm.
lot of people were doing these kind of effects. Whereas nowadays, it's like everywhere, just because Photoshop is, the primary tool of colorists.
Yeah.
So these are famous Marvel fanfare issues.
I see
Um,
what you mean about a lot of the detail being uh, a influence on the image generation of founders.
yeah, I mean, Todd McFarlane's whole thing was just like, the kids love little noodly details.
Yeah,
That's what the kids want. So,
Mm.
and his biggest influence, I think, was Michael Golden. In fact, like
I've did
Michael Golden is responsible for the inventing the
spaghetti webs
yeah spaghetti webs,
because
right?
it's like the
Mm.
idea is that it's a bunch of strands together with like more strands wrapped around it, as opposed to the webbing grid that had been so popular beforehand.
Yeah, that Ditko
Yeah.
did,
Yeah,
and McFarlane popularized it, but he gives credit to Michael Golden for creating it.
yeah.
So yeah, Marvel Fanfare went on for what, like 60, 70 issues, and yeah, he did the first two. And these are very well loved issues.
Yeah. This was,
The
I mean, the story itself was originally intended for Marvel Team Up, right?
Right, yeah. And then they
It
developed this
was,
brand new book, and the whole thing was that it was a
yeah.
prestige book. It had glossy paper,
I remember.
Baxter
Yeah.
paper, I think it was called, and which was not common back then. And I think it was also like sold directly to retailers. This didn't end up on the newsstand, and you can tell because there's no UPC.
Right, right.
There's
Are
some real
there?
special stuff that was featured in this book. There's that Barry Windsor Smith Thing story.
Right?
That's a
Yeah.
keeper, you know.
I mean, yeah. You pick up a random issue and you see some really exciting art.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But
like
not
Michael Golden's most famous one, we'll see a little bit later. He did another one that
oh,
is
awesome.
one of his most revered. But yeah, what do you think of the colors on this second issue? Because
Boy, they're muddy.
yeah, yeah,
I'm having a hard time grasping where one thing ends and where the other begins. Because I'm guessing that's Kazar in the center with Man Spider.
yeah.
Yeah.
Better kind of disappears a lot with all the
Yeah,
shading on him.
yeah,
They're both like polar opposites in terms of not just color scheme, but like even the logo from silver to gold.
right. Yeah,
It is really
The orange
cool.
skies, now you're underground. So in underground, he channels the purple
yeah.
more so.
And do you guys see that like Sauron in the background of issue two? Because it's kind of hidden, but really
Wait, what? Oh,
Oh, okay.
very subtle. I
okay.
just noticed it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, yeah. Because a lot of that background is just. I don't want to call it noise, but I don't know what else to describe it as. Like, there's just kind of
Mm.
It's hard to see, which I
yeah.
mean, it's
You really
probably
gotta.
what he was going for. He doesn't want you to
Yeah,
focus on that background, but unfortunately, it does affect the foreground elements because there's too much lighting on Spider-Man.
yeah.
Hmm.
And next up is one of his most famous series, the Nam, which we are going to do an episode in maybe a month or two specifically on the Nam.
Hell yeah.
Because this is a great series. And yeah, I have some of these covers out of order. So this is 1 and 6. And then 3 and 10. Why are these all out of order?
Classic reading order for the Nam. It's how they came out. You're supposed to be as disoriented as a new recruit getting dropped in the shit.
Well, every issue was like 24 hours, wasn't it? Or a week?
Or 1 month. 1 month. Because it's
1 month, that's right.
It's supposed to follow real time. Like after 11
That's
issues, you've experienced 11 months.
Whoa.
But like not every issue took place over the course of a month, but the idea was by issue 3 that our central character he's got 3 months experience by the end of
wow, okay.
Which made for a very, very interesting comic. This issue 2 cover here, this is a panel that's actually in the comic. And I don't know what the story is, but they clearly ran out of time and took that panel, blew it up.
Huh. Yeah, because I was
thinking... Is it colored as such too? I can't remember.
I think it's colored differently here.
It's colored differently, yeah.
But you can see the line work is like blown up, and like, you know, that thumb is be a lot more refined. But it was drawn as a tiny panel. But like, if you see how detailed issue 1 is, you kind of understand that, like, oh, he spent all his time on issue 1, and then by the time issue 2 came around, it's like, well, you don't have any time anymore.
I was surprised by issue 2's cover because it looks like he's really changing up the figure drawing style, and now I'm not sure if that's true or if it's just a result of a panel being blown up.
Oh no! Like, yeah, even these, like, when you're drawing soldiers in a war story, they're all wearing the same uniform, so you need to make them as distinct as possible. You need to like embrace cartooning and have different shapes and sizes and just weird looking faces.
Yeah.
And that was his deliberate approach with the Nam, just to make things clear. Which, we will go into more detail. Before anybody even knows it, that episode is going to be up.
So stay tuned.
Yeah, because he's really embracing cartooning with.
He is. It's going quite. This I think is very McFarlane-y. Like this is clearly what McFarlane is pulling from for a lot of the Spawn Rat City characters, I think.
Yeah, just trying to make interesting looking faces, memorable faces.
Yeah.
So Amazing Adventure.
That's a great cover. Number 11 is one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's great.
And the colors are just so.
They look like mountains. They look like triangular mountains stacked on top of each other.
Yeah. So that's like a triangular composition right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Triangles within triangles.
Oh, good point. Yep.
And then the rule of thirds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this Amazing Adventures, I need to track this comic down because this is basically a creator-owned thing with Chris Claremont. It's like a single issue story.
Is this a toy being photographed?
No, this is I believe this is painted work, and it just like, you know, it's the odd reproduction of that painted work with 80s printing technology.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know if that's intentional or just a cool side effect of the printing, or just what he was going for. But it feels like, like especially the background, that feels like, it's a set. It's a Playmobil set or something.
Yeah, it looks like kind of like digital, even though there was no.
Yeah, like the flames almost feel like they're digital and placed over top a photograph that's then been painted over with the figures in the foreground. Yeah, it's
very, very unique looking.
Yeah.
Very odd.
You said this was creator owned, but it's got the Marvel logo up at the top?
Yeah, because I think, and actually correct, I might be wrong about this, but from my understanding, it was he and Chris Claremont did a creator-owned story in this, because this is probably Epic, although there's no Epic logo on here. So, yeah, I have to look into that. I have to find that comic, and we have to cover it.
Companies, publishing lines become different things. So,
and in the 80s, there was a lot of like Marvel allowing creator-owned stuff, just a little bit.
right, yeah.
So we have some Spider-Ham and his Transformers cover. And here we have like leading lines. Spider-Man. Yeah, we have leading lines on this Transformers cover.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, your eye goes directly to that wound, the wound that's being created, I guess, on Optimus Prime.
Yeah, the mid-action blast, right? It's currently happening. It's not like Megatron is preparing or has just completed this. It's currently happening, which you don't actually see a lot of in terms of actions being taken. It's always, the advice I've always gotten was it should be the highest point of like the wind up or of like the punch has already connected, sort of.
Yeah, which is it's an animation thing, but it's also a Marvel Comics, like draw the Marvel Comics way, like Jack Kirby thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But do you think it's a recurring thing where he uses white to really focus, to create a focal point? Like, do you think that's a recurring thing with his work?
It has to be. I remember from I want to say it's the Calvin and Hobbes 10th anniversary book where Watterson gives like commentary on certain of his favorite strips, and one of them was the heavily noir tracer bullet stories from the middle of the run, and his commentary was, boy, people really don't like these. The eye being lazy is drawn to white empty spaces. So I got a lot of pushback on these heavy shadows with not a lot of white. So it would make sense that there's a lot of white and your eye just kind of naturally gravitates towards it.
That's funny because I think artists, those are their favorite strips.
Yeah. They're some of mine, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got some G.I. Joe as well. Now, he did a very famous, I'm not sure if I have the cover here, but he did a very famous G.I. Joe yearbook story, which I think became like the Bible for Wildstorm comics. I think everybody was required to look at and study that G.I. Joe Year One.
Oh, really?
Which is another thing I have to track down because it's famous.
G.I. Joe number 27 there, another great example of focus lines. Just everything points towards the punch that just happened, that Storm Shadow just delivered to Snake Eyes.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
Also, how rad are the names for G.I. Joe? Everybody's got just such a cool
name. They're so cool. The
Storm Shadow versus Snake Eyes.
Yeah, I love that.
Scarlet's piloting the attack helicopter.
Yeah, and here we have it looks like he's mixing some painted work with some traditional coloring work. And it just looks wild.
Yeah, because it does feel like there's real limitations in I don't know if it's the printing or just capturing the image initially. Like this, I'm going to call it scanning, but I know that's not what the term is because it's not scanned.
Yeah.
Photographic plates, something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, he did. I managed to find a black and white version of this, and so it's interesting to see the black and white and then see the color choices where he distinctly put the spotlight in there to note where to put the color and where to pull back.
This is around the time that he's starting to channel that style. This is probably around the same time as his Punisher covers, or his Punisher covers are about to come out, if this is in order. But like just the figure work on Destro, that's starting to look a little like, when you see Punisher, you'll see it, especially in the face with the squinty eyes and the giant brows and the square nose, square jaw.
I want to point out too, I think this is a good example of him. He's really grown as far as his black and white work, because you can see he's dropped out a lot of heavy blacks and is putting it just on the figure of Destro, who I think, and I definitely would have done this as well. Like, oh no, but I got to put there's a spotlight. I got to put more like blacks around the edges and have them come in. It's like, no, that's just gonna lose it. Just it looks like he's getting more comfortable with the idea of color can be used in terms of focus finding.
You know, when I used to color my own comics, and they were terrible, but when you have Photoshop and every color at your disposal, you just put color everywhere, just on everything. But there's only like what, 5 or 6 colors being used here total, and also white. Like, it's the idea of like when not to use color.
Yeah.
And for this poster, it was a very deliberate choice. Keep it white with a little bit of highlights and shading with that.
Yeah, blow it out. Like,
Yeah,
actually happens on paper that can be put outside for a wanted poster. Because you can even see the difference between where the circle spotlight hits and the poster that is outside of that.
Yeah, and he wants you to read the wanted part. So I mean, I'm sure he was tempted to like make that outside part darker, but he wants you to read that. Okay, some more G.I. Joe covers. These are the last 2. So I guess this was him doing like 5 or 6 G.I. Joe covers. I think G.I. Joe ended around this time, but
he's starting to again adopt that blockhead style. That's going to be pretty prevalent going forward from here.
Yeah, which I assume he did a lot of drawing 11 issues of the Nam, and then he came out and just implemented more cartooning into his work. But it's interesting you call it the blockhead approach. That's a good description.
Well, if you notice, like if you have a lot of, he does do some portrait composed covers. Like there's a couple of Superman and Wonder Woman ones that I saw where it's close up on the head. When he's drawing the head, even the eyes kind of curve in a way that you can see that it's cubed. It's all cubed. Right. So right from the corners of the eyes, it comes straight down. And obviously it depends on the character too, but this is kind of like a uniform thing for him. It's definitely his style.
But he's definitely also trying to make it more interesting. I think probably making it more interesting for himself as well.
Good time to bring it up. The Art of Michael Golden, Excess. Yeah. This book, I think it's still in print. Eric, if you want to quickly just go. Eric's got that book too. Yeah.
Feeling left out. Oh no.
So if you go to his DC stuff, let me find the page number real quick.
While you do that, I just want to give a shout out to Michael Golden for the care that he's definitely taking with the different faces. We've talked about this a lot before, but the Betty and Veronica syndrome, Eric, and you can see Lady J and the Baroness. Those are 2 distinct faces.
Yeah.
Eric, go to page 33. And I hope you can find this to post up. The Wonder Woman.
Right. So yeah.
So you can see there.
This is an interesting stage because we're looking at late 80s stuff right now, and so he does eventually move to a point where he's not doing a lot of blacks or as much blacks as he did in the 80s and just putting a lot into the color.
Yeah, but applying that blockhead term, like even with Wonder Woman, you can see the corners of her eyes start to go back to the side, so it's a cube essentially. Even her jaw conforms to that.
Yeah.
And even the soldier in the foreground, you could apply it there. It's kind of like the Loomis method, right? You chop off the sides of a cube, or excuse me, a sphere. Cheat out the jaw. Yeah.
Good call on the Loomis books. Young artists out there, if you want to learn how to draw, check out the Loomis books. They are, I think they're all free PDFs if you just LOOMIS.
I pretty heavily subscribe to the Loomis method for drawing heads. Definitely, it really helps.
Yeah, and it's a good place. It's also a good place to start because it's not like it boxes you in. You can still push stuff.
Yeah, actually, that's good. That's worth bringing up. That you can even like kind of distort it, but still, as long as you stick to the principle of a sphere with the sides chopped off and key about the jaw, you can get a lot done. You can
Yeah.
taper the jaw down, make the head big, kind of like Mars Attacks, or it works.
Yeah.
So something I want to comment on is the
US #1.
yeah. But with this Doctor Strange, like this is a recurring trope is he puts a lot of work into something, just detailing something, and then he's just not afraid when it comes to the coloring approaches to just like disappear it and just like push it back and you can barely see it. Similar to like that Sauron we pointed out in the background. But like there are figures in the background of this what if Doctor Strange that are very detailed, but he's like washed them all out. You can barely make them out.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a brave thing to just like your instinct is to put a lot of work into something and you want to show it. You want people to see it, but to I don't know, subtly like push it to the background.
I wonder if he has a growing appreciation for the audience as well, because I think there's a tendency, especially for the business side of art and entertainment, to assume the audience doesn't know anything. Like you have to make it obvious for them. You have to tell them what's going on. But I feel like almost every person on Earth is attuned to art, and will, even if they don't recognize it immediately, the background, they will still pick up on the feeling that it's generating. And upon further inspection, we'll probably go, "Oh, damn! There's faces back there."
Yeah, and speaking of that, like he wants to tell a story with all these images. So I didn't read What If Doctor Strange should not become Master of the Mystic Arts, but what feeling is he evoking with this?
It would have been a very bad thing if Doctor Strange had not become the Master of Mystic Arts.
Yeah.
But just like horror. Like look at Doctor
it's a
Strange's
nightmare.
face.
It's from the washed out faces giving you the feeling of something coming from the depths of night, to the high contrast figures in the cape, and then because it's also using the triangle shape of here's what you should be paying attention to, and here the stuff in the background is it's giving you that creep factor.
Yeah, and a lot of use of red because red evokes like danger.
Be on alert. Yeah. Actually, could you quickly go back to US #1? I just want to give okay. I just want to give a quick history lesson. This is before Star Wars has really hit. So there's a huge swath of American children's entertainment that is just like, we don't know what kids want. Do you like trucks? Truckers are big because this is the same era as like Smokey and the Bandit, where truckers, they're the new outlaws. And they're just desperately trying to get something to stick.
And maybe, or do you think they're trying to sell toys as well?
They are, yeah. And that gets obliterated by Star Wars because that's exactly what kids want. But this is kind of like, this is all we got at the time.
Yeah, I mean, George Lucas was very forward thinking because like the studio looked at that and said, well, of course you can have the toy rides. We don't there's no money in that.
Yeah, because nobody knows, like, what do kids want? They don't know.
Yeah. So here's some Conan painted stuff. And yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure if it was printed. Like, so yeah, here we have, I don't know the story behind this, but like, I think this is how it came out printed, and this is what it's supposed to look like. Or this is what a more accurate depiction of what the painted version did look like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so for the Conan covers, growing up when I saw them on the stands, a lot of them looked way better than what I've seen recently. I haven't seen any of these in physical form very recently, so some of them look better in one way or the other, and it's really hard for me to tell, like in my mind's eye, how it printed out to what I see on a screen. Because obviously you can see there's two different versions here, but they've also been printed as such. Like the one on the right is for the most recent omnibus printing, not omnibus, but the phone books that they were doing, the black and white ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
and when you're coloring your own work, it gets into the printer, and oftentimes you learn a lot, and oftentimes you're horrified by how it came out. So I would be interested to know what he thinks of these. Like, does he like one versus the other, or is he horrified by both?
Yeah.
I'd just be curious. But yeah, here's another example, like both 80s printing, but yeah, it was inverted.
Yeah, why flip it?
Yeah.
The one on 124 there, awesome.
Yeah.
Another example where he did a lot of detailing in the background and then just sort of like
He's
pushed
actually
it away because
he's used that composition repeatedly, the jumping into the pit of swords kind of composition.
Oh, okay.
Not just him, obviously other artists have well, not ripped off, but used that composition for their own work too.
But these are you can see where a lot of 80s metal bands are taking inspiration from too. Like these are album covers that are just definitely gonna, like, these are Gwar covers, Man of War covers, just so like, yeah, let the horns fly, fuck right, man.
And then Cole. So yeah, again, like how it was printed, and I guess
these Cull covers are great, by the way. These stand out to me for sure.
I love that her expression, that's great. The hand and his behind him,
his expression in his face, where he's facing one way, but his eyes are coming down at his target as he's mid swing. That lends a lot to the composition for sure.
Yeah,
such an interesting approach to put the green shading on the moon.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have done that, but I mean, he knows more about color theory than me, I think. And
well, it looks like he wants to make it seem, it feels like the bat creatures are kind of, they're not, I don't think they're supposed to be coming from the moon, but there's definitely an association that's supposed to be going with it, right?
Well, and also, I guess if it was pure yellow or pure orange, the contrast on those creatures would be the most stark. And he doesn't want your eye to go directly to those creatures. He wants your eye to be going to the central figures. So by putting a lot of green there, he like muddies that area so your eye isn't going there.
Yeah. There's also something to the use of color with association. A good example is Alex Maleev's work on Daredevil. Nothing except for Daredevil is red in that book, unless you are supposed to associate it with Daredevil. Like, it's a New York there are no red cars in New York in this Daredevil run, unless it's headed at Matt Murdock or associated with them in some way.
Yeah, just a very strategic use of color.
Mm-hmm.
So another one here we have, again, the black and white versus the color, which is always interesting to see. Because, I mean, the uncolored one is quite a bit of visual noise.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where my eye is supposed to go, but he drew this knowing it's intended to be colored. The final version is intended to be colored. And then when you do see the final version, it's not a mess anymore. And you know exactly where you're supposed to be looking. Because where you're not supposed to be focusing on they're just like one color. It's just red or violet. And then where most of the differing colors is on our central figure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with highlights and
strategic use of white. Good call. Yeah. And then our final Cole the Conqueror. This, I get Jason Pearson from this.
Yeah, definitely.
Who?
So Jason Pearson is an influence on me. And so I'm more studied on Jason Pearson's work and less studied on Michael Golden's. And so it's interesting to see like the stuff I've taken from Jason Pearson and then to look at this stuff and go like, oh, I've been influenced by this, but through the eyes of Jason Pearson.
Yeah, that one Cull cover, I love it. It's my favorite of all of his whole run.
And again, like, so brave to like put that much white.
Yep.
I mean, I guess I call it brave, but I mean, it is. There's just so much temptation to make things very colorful and stand out. But
it's the right call, right? Like, the background is mostly white that makes the executioner figure pop, but then in contrast, Cull with all the color pops against the executioner.
Yeah,
It's like this layer of what am I supposed to be paying attention to? First Conan, then him, then the Executioner. Yeah, it sets up.
Great use of visual weight as well.
Yeah.
That Executioner is clearly the antagonist, and he clearly has some sort of power in whatever dynamic these two have.
Yeah, and if you take the excuse me, if you take the logo away, in the top right corner, there's a splotch of black. That's really, I think, composition. The composition is like a pretty much a flipped golden ratio rectangle again, with the top corner taking up that top space. Yeah, and then it spreads out, and then again, Cull is a bunch of straight lines down. The Execution in the back, his arm is down and to the right, like it's giving off these rectangles within rectangles. Kind of sequence coming out,
and
even
the human
eye
is
like coming down.
The human eye is drawn naturally to itself, like the full human figure is like something you look for, right? Head to toe. So just having him semi-floating in this, you would think like, oh, I got to see this. This is clearly a person.
Well, if you contrast that to the Impossible Man cover, where again it's the curved lines to give off, or the diagonal lines to give off action, whereas because on the Cull cover they're supposed to both be standing stoically, so he's using lines just coming straight down.
Good call.
And making it interesting by cutting into corners of each box, right?
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good observation, because like everything on them is like the straps, the armored loincloth, like these are things that could be moved to and distorted to suggest movement, but no, you're right. They're just like, they're solid, they're stoic, they're unmoving. Both of them. It's two stones, it's two henge stones about to collide.
Oh yeah, good call. They're very solid.
Yeah,
but I guess I harp on this a lot, but strategic use of white. Like around the Impossible Man.
Yep.
Because the danger with like drawing the X-Men or drawing any superhero team is the amount of color, like the diverse amount of color. It can look like a Skittles pack, and it can look really ugly. And you do have a lot of colors on this cover, but like the white is the thing that makes the Impossible Man stick out.
Yeah,
it's sort
of a really great Jubilee.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, which he did a great 3-page sequence where Jubilee is watching Gambit and Wolverine fight in the Danger Room. And yes, he draws a great Jubilee in that.
Yeah, I remember that one, yeah.
You know what? I do want to bring up quickly something off of what, Eric, what you said about the use of color, because there was a time in comics history when comics were the most colorful entertainment that you could get. Right? Like movie color was not great, or it was still in black and white. TV was all black and white, but color comics were like punch you in the face. And that tradition got really baked into the form, at least in North America. So you're right, when you drop color out, it is going against these long established conventions of the medium.
I mean, yeah, it is crazy just how colorful the X-Men are, where there's not really any unified quality to them. But
they did lean into the blue and yellow in future designs. Remember when they all had that one costume, and then from there, they've always leaned into yellow and blue.
Yeah, they always try. They seem to kind of ebb and flow between, okay, let's make them all look similar, and then after a while, no, let's go back to the individualized uniforms. And it really seems like there's a tendency to ebb back and forth between the two, right? Like,
I mean, when Gambit was designed, Jim Lee specifically looked at the cast and said, okay, we're not using any pinks and we're not using any, browns or whatever. So I'm going to use these colors.
Yeah,
so right. Specifically finding a deficiency. We haven't used this part of the rainbow yet.
But then, 12 years later, after the movie comes out, the Morrison Quitely version is, nope, they're all wearing black leather.
They're unified.
Yeah.
Yeah, with yellow trim. Yeah.
So this is like probably his most famous comic, Marvel Fanfare number 47, which we will look at in a future one, because the entire issue is collected in original art form in the artist edition, which I have, and we'll have to look at that.
Nice.
So more on this issue in the future, but yeah, we haven't had a lot of DC so far. We are out of the 80s now, so or actually, hold on. Yeah, this is 1991. So yeah, these are some interesting covers. Talk about contrast with the Batman one.
Yeah, he's dropped out. Yeah, the use of minimalism in the first one in 625, and then immediately 626.
Yes,
this Byzantine city of detail.
So when it comes to like contrast, you sometimes want to juxtapose like straight lines with I guess rounded lines, and so you get that with Batman. The city is very angular and straight, and Batman is very organic looking.
Yeah, it's flapping and flopping all over the place, and just heavy dark blacks.
Yeah, the blacks on the rooftop and a bit on the top, they kind of frame Batman, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and draw your eye to, well, that's probably where he's heading, right? Because they're more prevalent on the direction that he's headed.
Yeah, and it's a very detailed image, but there's no doubt where the focal point is, right?
Yeah,
where your eye goes. It goes on like Batman.
He's also left quite a bit of space for Batman to move into, which it's my understanding that when you're communicating movement, you're supposed to have like the space that they're going towards be available.
Yeah.
Because your mind fills in like, oh, okay, yeah, they're going there. But if he were like down in the right-hand corner, it would be like, so is he just like stuck there? What's going on?
I like how the light is kind of encasing, like the drawing of all the buildings, the way they're all laid out is that there's a big hole for him to actually drop down, and it's actually he's using light to kind of shine that one straight diagonal line where he's going straight into
this
a hole.
This is the lightest area right here.
Exactly.
And yeah, a lot of use of I guess because Batman is usually blue, he surrounds him oftentimes with red and purples and violets and just like that warm versus cool contrast.
Yeah.
Which we get a lot.
He's also starting to do a lot of the diagonal line layout designs.
Yeah, like right here.
Go back, right there. But in the last two you just threw up there again. Boom, boom, boom. It's just diagonal lines going straight across.
Yeah, they're either leaning towards him or framing him or both.
And John Cassaday does that quite a bit too. If it's just characters standing around, he'll tilt the camera a little bit so that they're all give the sense of motion.
Angle.
Yeah,
Dutch angle. That's right.
Which was interesting when John Cassaday directed a TV show. He put his trademark Dutch angles in there. So.
What did he direct?
He directed an episode of Dollhouse.
Huh.
Yeah. And it's the kind of, what's that DiCaprio meme where you're pointing at the screen and I'm like, Dutch angle. John Cassaday art piece.
He loves it.
He's the Dutch angle king. Cassaday is. Yeah.
So this is an interesting thing where he, maybe he was doing a lot of warm versus cool, a lot of reds and violets against Batman, and he needed to change it up. He's like, can I pull it off with green? Can I pull it off with cool and cool?
Yeah. Actually, a lot of this is he uses this in his Punisher covers too, with a lot of pinks and greens. But also at the same time, wasn't that the era of like the kind of what's the opposite of crime noir, where it was like all neon and Miami Vice and that sort of thing?
Oh yeah, the new wave feel.
Yeah,
neon noir.
No, neon noir is it? No, I know what you're talking about though, Colin. It is like
crime, neon crime.
it's
crime noir,
blue sky neon something. Yeah,
a lot of electrical effects where you can get the white involved.
Yeah,
electricity, and so
frames
this curly crackle.
645. Where is the focal point?
It's Batman's knee headed towards the guy's head for me.
Yeah, you think so?
That's a good question actually, because it is.
I
I
would
think
say
it's
it's his bat symbol on his chest.
yeah.
Oh.
But what's weird about it is that he's heading in the wrong direction. He's heading from right to left. It should be left to right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a stark rule when it comes to like. Yeah,
And
your character should be going left to right because that's how we read.
mm-hmm. And Robin pops a surprising amount.
Yeah, I don't know. My eye goes directly onto this figure here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
the
know.
white.
Hang
Sometimes
on a
it's
second, though,
up to
guys.
interpretation.
It is. I think it is going left to right. If you take that, all like his staff, his torso, even Batman's torso, the way Robin is, they're all coming down left to right diagonal.
Oh, so you're saying your eye's being led like this is a leading line? And then
Yeah.
you go
And
down
then
like
I think
this?
it's just colored in a way where it gives the right to left impression
Hmm.
a little.
I feel like it's the figure of Batman should be flipped. That's it. I think you're right about everything else. Like the staff, the buildings, it's all directing you left to right, but Batman's weirdly right to left. I don't know. There's something going on that's like, what am I seeing? What am I not seeing? I think
And
if we flipped this, it would be a lot more obvious.
But if you flipped it, his crotch would be right above his head too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So on 646, Batman is framed by this purple.
Mm-hmm.
Like it you know, it's on top of him and below him, and so yeah, it's a good use of framing in contrast with the warm and cool. Yeah, like again, I get Jason Pearson vibes from this 485 cover. I love the curvilinear perspective on here,
Mm-hmm.
which is just not easy to do. And it's a lot easier to do with like Clip Studio or whatever. But you know, he didn't have that back then, so it gives a really like warped feel. I mean, Batman is the protagonist here, but you know, it looks like he's just stalking this dude.
Yeah.
It looks like he's the bad guy.
Hey, this regular guy who happens to be wearing a black leather mask is being harassed by the Batman.
So we got a Catwoman cover here, and Cops, the Job. First day.
The Job. What job is that, officer? Vice Squad, day one.
Yeah, it is kind of wild the eyes on this guy, because like you know they're one pupil is bigger than the other and one is pointing in another direction, and so it just gives a wild feel to it.
Yeah.
But again, like if he wanted us to focus on that dude, he would make that dude's eyes white, but the white elements are all on her.
True.
Yeah.
And yeah,
he did
he did a bunch of Cops the Job covers, which this was only what, like 4 issues maybe. So
that left one, or the right one especially, that feels like Capullo took quite a bit from that.
Oh yeah.
Well, referencing what Eric said about Golden Light, loves to use the story to compose his covers, and in this case, in number 2, there is a gunfight scene, but the image on the one that wasn't used on the right, was that used on a future cover? I don't think so.
Oh, that's issue 3. Yeah,
issue 3. Yeah,
should have put them beside
like,
each other.
I love these shots where you have to pick up the book. You have to see what's going on.
Yeah, what's happening here?
Yeah.
So here we have Marvel swimsuit. So not really a cover, but still an illustration. So
where are they? Is this the Savage Land? Vacationing in the Savage Land?
Yeah, maybe that particular. There was like 5 Marvel swimsuits, and maybe that particular entire issue took place in the Savage Land. But you gotta appreciate how like sexless these heroes are, because you have lines that can denote form, you've got a flag there with a lot of lines, and yeah, he's it's not a lot not going on down there.
No, that super soldier formula didn't enhance everything, it would seem.
So yeah, here we get the black and white versus the final version, which I had this comic. This was a fun, like, thick reprint comic that Marvel was doing back then. Yeah, so much detail.
Yeah, this actually feels kind of like a slide backwards for him, because he had been dropping detail out, but wow, this is quite a bit of noise going on.
Yeah, but I mean, he realized it clearly, because there's a lot of white on the page, on the final colored version, just to give those silhouettes that you don't necessarily see in the original.
And this is the era of computer coloring coming in too, so he might be thinking, well, you guys can cover this, right?
This is interesting because, yeah, if we go back here, this is the 64 color process where you have a very limited amount of colors, and then you see a transition into, and you can tell because of the highlights.
Yeah,
you get gradient highlights.
Oh yes, they're so smooth, those edges.
And we're mixing stuff up here because we're back to the 64 color process, so a lot of this stuff is out of order. But this cover, this Doctor Strange and Ghost Rider cover is crazy.
It's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, and I've seen a black and white version in this, and I kind of appreciate the black and white more, I think, because I guess you appreciate the detail more.
What page is it?
Good question. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, right here, page 76.
Okay. Yeah. You kind of lose Doctor Strange in it, but
yeah, I was gonna say it does not. What's the word? Not clash within itself, but it's just there's a lot going on that you have to.
It's very busy.
Really got. Yeah, it's busy. You just gotta decipher each thing individually to kind of get the whole.
Well, but
the colors, everything's
version. The black and white version, the background, I would say it's like 75% black, and so the figures really pop out because he did that. But and this could just be a bad picture of how the coloring turned out. Like, this is not a fair representation of how the colors are supposed to look. Whereas this Doctor Strange one is a fair representation.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
talk about the Fibonacci spiral.
Yeah,
I think I'm not too familiar with it. So
well, we will cover it soon. So for these Nomad covers, he did a lot of this sort of a microchip effect, and he also used this effect in there's like a Psylocke pinup he did. But yeah, like again, like a lot of thought put into how it's going to be colored, because he pulls it right back in the color version. So I guess at this time he's playing around with Photoshop, and taking a lot of the busy elements, and he's able to knock them back out of view. And I guess he took this one painted image and like kept it on over the course of like 4 issues. But like, it looks like maybe the figure is getting more emaciated, and eventually becoming a skeleton. So it's a very cool effect.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and again, I'm thinking about Jason Pearson, like how Jason Pearson draws like a crying face, and a yelling face, which is something that I like. I kind of do this sort of this mouth yelling face that I got from Jason Pearson, but he got it from Michael Golden. So we are now at the main.
Dun, da, da, da.
Colin, let's talk about how passionate.
Whoa, hang on a second. Let's just moment of silence. If you're watching, audience, just take a moment and just take this in. Take both of these in, okay? This is the greatest cover of all time.
Yeah.
So Eric was, Taylor, you were saying about the Fibonacci sequence, in golden ratio. So just audience, if you don't know, I'm just going to kind of read off like a general definition in my notes that the golden ratio, the Fibonacci sequence is a mathematical equation. It's just a sequence of numbers used to calculate some form of measurements, like say how long or how much you would need to achieve a result. And when it's communicated in art form, it's usually you use like a rectangle. So you can superimpose this rectangle, which is 1 by 1.6. And if you take, for example, a book or a comic book, like a comic book is 7.5 by what, 9 or 10? 7.5 by 10, I think, right?
I think so.
And so it's visually appealing for you to hold this book in your hand. That's why comics are in the form that they are, or books are in the form that they are. You don't have books that are just perfect squares, you know, like a record cover or something. It's more practical in your mind to hold something that's short by long. And in this case, Eric, you've got the rectangle superimposed over that, overlaid over that Ghost Rider cover, right? So you can see even if you flip that or you apply that in any different way, there are focal points on the cover which relate to this exact template.
Right.
So you can flip this template in many different ways. So now going forward, I don't know how many you've got there, Eric, but you can see there's always going to be a corner focal point for, like I said, almost 100% of the covers. Even if he's drawing your eye to the center, like in his Micronauts covers, you're always still going to be able to see this within the image in different ways. So it's not just one form that it's used in. You can use it in all different ways. Rectangles within rectangles. You can flip it, turn it upside down, that sort of thing, and you'll just see it. So,
and this is something that persists in nature, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's again, it's a measurement of, I think, like even if you apply it to human anatomy, like the way your hand is sized, like from one corner from your pinky to your thumb, it's like a rectangle, right? It's like 1 by 1.6.
Right. Yeah. Like the width of your eye is the 1 to the 1.6 of the length of your nose. That's sort of like everything relates to each other.
Yeah. So in the Punisher series, I just want to quickly say that everything that we've talked about up until this point, the use of white, the rule of thirds, triangles, all that sort of stuff. You see it all kind of, to me, culminates in this run of covers. It's not just Punisher; it's also Punisher War Journal. There's a couple of different Punisher Armory, a couple of different series that it contributed covers for. But every single one is just it's the cream of the crop. It's the cream of the cup. Right.
Now, do you think he did that on purpose, or is that just something that 20 years of drawing has instilled in him?
I mean, that's a good question, because that's what I wanted to say is just like, we don't know.
Okay.
We do know that it makes for a great cover.
Yeah.
And
it works out. Yeah.
Somehow, even if it wasn't intentional, it happened. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's just like, it might just be intuitive to him, or it might have been fully planned out.
Okay.
We're through the looking glass here, people.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't believe how well it maps to all of these. And there are, like, even in these examples, you could flip these any which way and it would still work.
Yeah,
if I mean, take this back,
his face is always in there, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's any head though. If you go back to like the Micronauts covers, like Captain Universe, his head is right at that point in the corner.
Okay.
Or Captain America's face. There's a lot of covers here, like from Nomad and whatnot. You'll be able to see the head or the face or just whatever facial focal point is right at that spot. And it doesn't have to be at that spot. It might be flipped or reversed or whatever, but you can find it. If you look, you can find it.
Very cool.
Yeah, so this is an interesting challenge. Like if you're trying to come up with a cool cover, and you're I don't know, if maybe you're designing it in Photoshop, you can grab this golden ratio and put it in the underlayer and just start drawing. And I mean, it's like a nice little hack to create a very appealing looking cover.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think it's something you should use as the basis, or is it something that you should use as a check? Like, okay, I've got the design down, now put the spiral over it. Oh no, you know what? It's not quite working. Now I can adjust with.
Yeah. I mean, both maybe. Like it's
Okay.
just like all artists have a different procedure and a
Yeah,
different.
true. Yeah.
And maybe you should try a mix and match of it all. And I don't know. I don't think it's a 100% rule. Like I mean, I don't think it really applies to every single cover, because again, you do have some center composites. Like that face is not falling into that particular zone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because it's one way of breaking up a design. It's not the only way.
And that is another thing, is like there are rules to composition, but another thing that people say often is you got to break these rules sometimes. Like you got to know them and find ways to break them, to bend them.
But also, Eric, it might be a bit of a reach, but like that corner focal point can come out a little bit more. Like the rectangle within the rectangle could kind of fall at a certain spot within the page that he's still using that design. Like if you go back to if you just go back one. So here, the original art there on the left, I think the corner box logo was supposed to take up the top left. I think it was drawn with that in mind.
Yeah.
So in the printed version, though, it's kind of offset. So I don't know if he was aware of it or not, but you can if he was going to be offset, then the top of his head falls at that corner. Mm-hmm. Like there's still that corner spot used. It's just maybe there's not a face in there, but there's kind of like still a divide that gives you that sense that there is a corner box.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, how about so he's like the best in the game when it comes to drawing guns and just like the technical aspect of this stuff, which we will see in Nam, when we look at it, because the amount of military things that he researches and has to draw on a regular basis, and how he just knocks it out of the park every single time, and he does not cut corners. It's impressive. But this is impressive to me because of the amount of work he did in the background here, knowing that it's going to be pulled back. But at the same time, this Punisher Armory, do you have this comic, Colin? Because I think it might be a hologram, but I'm not sure.
No, I don't. I'm on the quest. So that's my new quest right now, is to get all of his Punisher covers, however I can.
Yeah, because these are stunning. I mean, this one is wild.
Yeah, that's yeah. I don't want to overextend the term greatest of all time, but I think I might end up doing that in this episode, because that's the greatest cover of all time.
There's multiple greatest of all time.
Yeah. So
I think I have them all here. Sorry, you want to go back to the beginning?
No, the one with the TV, the TV screen cover.
TV's right there. Yeah,
there you go. So here, the corner of where his neck meets his trapezius, that in itself can lend itself to just a larger top corner square, or rectangle. Excuse me. So that's what I'm saying, is that he may not put the face in the corner, but there may still be a rectangle within the rectangle. Right. Just that top left corner.
Yeah, and it is some of these look like they're explicitly designed for the logo to be there, and some of them look like it's sort of slapped on. So I don't know what the original art looks like. Like in a lot of this stuff, like this, I think was a pinup in the back of a magazine, and it looks very squarish. Mm-hmm. So some of these covers were drawn on different. But I mean, every one of these is just stunning.
Can we go back to 50? So I looked at this cover a lot in preparation for this episode, but I'll start there.
I'm just picturing you staring lovingly, and then 2 hours like that.
Yeah, I got it. I got it on the coffee table over there. But so the Fibonacci,
you have it too now, Taylor, right? Like Colin gave you a copy.
Yeah, I gave Taylor a copy too.
Yes, thanks again.
No problem. This one I see more as rule of thirds, more
Right.
so than the golden ratio, because I don't know if he knew that there were going to be explosive captions surrounding the head, but the uh, the rule of thirds does apply because the corner box cuts off right at his chin ish.
Right.
Um, so I don't know if he had the logo in mind that it was going to take up most of the first third, and then his head would be framed by both. Because if you look at the title page or the cover, you see the logo, and you see that it is the 50th issue, and then you see giant size. I don't know which one you would read first, but you can see that his head is planted between those two. So it's kind of like that's the selling point. Is you know who this is, and it's a big deal. It's his 50th issue, and what is he doing? He's doing what he does best, right? So the bottom or excuse me, the middle third. Sorry,
would her chin fall at the bottom of the middle third?
Bottom. So yeah, her chin would fall
Yeah,
at
I
the
think
bottom of
so.
the middle third. If you take the middle third, his chest takes up the center, but he also the guns and her face. She's screaming in horror. And then the bottom third, I think was supposed to be bullets flying through the water back at them. Like there's a lot of
Oh,
splash
yeah,
effects in
yeah.
there that I think were just kind of lost in the color. But yeah, it's perfectly composed. It's perfectly composed. I don't know what else to say. Um, the color
Oh,
scheme and everything. He's got the use of white against like some red obviously signifying rage, and all the lines are coming back towards the center, and in the center spot is his skull, right? So everything's being used here. Even the positioning of the female in the water, her body is coming in a diagonal angle up towards the skull.
yeah.
And all the lines, they're in a tunnel, so all the tunnel lines, the water, everything is coming up to the center, which is the skull.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
it's
know.
all leading you
Throw the whole book at this one. Like you can see it
Yeah.
all.
and it
Yeah.
leads you to like it's directing you to from left to right ultimately to be like open up, see what's going on.
Mm.
Come check out this book.
So
Because that's the thing about these covers, right? Is that ultimately they are supposed to want you to buy and then read the book.
I just had to go grab it and hold it.
Okay, so there's like 20 compositional rules, but just for this particular episode, we just took 6 random compositional rules. Rule of thirds we already covered. Focal point. The focal point is very clearly his chest, right?
Yeah.
Balance. That's where you have rest versus detail. There is a lack of detail on his chest where the focal point is.
Yeah.
So now when it comes to visual weight, yeah, I guess like he's the biggest. Well, the two figures are the biggest elements there. So contrast, which we already covered, which is the white. Leading lines. You see that the background elements are all in perspective leading to these figures.
In the black and white, if you strip away the color, on the black and white there, you can also kind of see. So the way the Punisher's torso ends at the top of the female's head and cuts across. Again, it's another rectangle in that left side. It's just a bigger size of that rectangle, but it's still adhering to the golden ratio.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on.
And so what your two favorites are what? This one and this
100.
one?
Yeah. 50 and 100. I'm still on the quest for number 100.
Is it the same book? It's the same, just straight up and down Punisher, right?
I think this is still volume 1 for Punisher. Yeah. So this for 100 was the first 100.
It's interesting to see the difference that 50 issues makes too, in terms of the style that we're expecting. Because that feels 100 feels super 90s to me, whereas issue 50 has more of a transitional feel from 80s to 90s.
Yeah, that's like 91, and then because he did Punisher covers for 4 years.
Whoa.
Yeah, he did. And he's remembered and revered for these covers. especially among Punisher fans. But I mean, he's just such an ideal choice for it because I mean, look at how accurate these guns are. Look at how detailed they are.
Look at how detailed or inaccurate the skeleton is. The
Yeah.
skull and the hands, like he's got all the tarsals of the hands.
Yeah,
The
skeletons are a hell of a thing to draw. You can find out more. You can see me draw a bunch of skeletons by ordering, by pledging to the Kickstarter Dauntless Showcase #1.
We should get one of those pages and throw it up there, or keep the mystery.
No, yeah, you got to buy it to find out.
Yeah, a lot of these covers are in the Michael Golden Artist Edition, so if you can still track that down, I would recommend getting them. And yeah, in a future episode, I think I already said that yeah, we're going to take a look at that. Okay, so that was all the Punisher stuff. We have a
there's some Generation X. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we have a little bit more to go. He did a lot of covers. He was like primarily doing covers in the 90s, I think. Like he did this Spartan X comic, but I think that's like interior art was few and far between. It was mostly covers. So he did like 2 Excalibur covers. He did a couple of Generation X annuals. Now I will say that I was, 95, I was 11 years old, really into Generation X. And I saw this cover, and as an 11-year-old, I was not into it. I have to admit. But I was a dumb kid because this is amazing.
Yeah.
And
well, you know what, Eric? I was gonna say, I mean, this when you think Generation X, you think Botchalo. And I think that was kind of your house style for Generation X.
Nobody else can draw those characters other than Botchalo.
Exactly. So when you see someone else like Golden doing it, you kind of have this kind of what's the word? Disdain.
Yeah.
It's the veg. It's in a way it's good for you, but you don't know it's like vegetables.
It is interesting looking at the difference between these two because of how these lines just fully disappear.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was intentional. Like I'm pretty sure he colored it himself. So it was by design. But so yeah, this was this a big comic for you?
Oh, dude.
Whoa.
Hologram, 90s hologram.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I read that book every day for a year after it came out. Gary Frank is some great Gary Frank art. I think that and his Hulk made me a fan for life. But this cover, actually, Eric, so let's shift to his double wraparound covers and kind of talk about that. Let's explore how what kind of compositions he's using for that, because you can see with these Generation X covers and the Sabretooth, it's just like a myriad of characters doing different things. They can do different things. They have different designs and stuff. How does he kind of, I'm seeing like he's kind of overlapping the characters quite a bit with each other.
Well, and double page covers, like wraparound covers are a challenge because they have to work 2 different ways. They need to work as the single element, the one cover, the front cover, and they also have to work together as 2 covers. So so how does he pull it off, do you think? Like, oh wow, it's interesting, the sync effect, the character sync, and what, like he did it with like a red line and then like pulled it out and did this crazy effect here, which that was established in the comics, this like weird effect. But yeah, going back to like, so I don't know, like what's the focal point when it's just a single front cover, and what's the focal point when it's 2 covers? What do you guys think? Is it the same thing in both? You kind of have to like block it out.
Yeah, I guess it is. It's who's the guy in the Hawaiian shirt?
Mondo.
Is it Mondo for both? No, because
I think so.
One.
Because this issue is Mondo Thrills, Mondo Excitement. He's the main character of this issue.
Okay.
So do you have black? Is there black and white? Can you go back one?
Let's see.
There you go. Well, actually, no. The color. My point would work better in color. Just go back.
Yeah, and like the color is
the
his
X is right.
intended way for you to experience it.
Yeah.
The X is right in the middle. Chamber's belt is right in the middle of the page of the cover.
Right.
And if you actually start to X out from there, you can see that the lines kind of do carry with Banshee's cape into the sparks from Jubilee's fireworks all the way to the top left corner. And then from Chamber's shoulder, if you go to the black and white one, so from Chamber's shoulder, you see Sync's line going into the top right corner of the page. And then from his leg, like his thigh, going down to the bottom left, you've got, is that M? No, it's Husk, right? Husk's head. I'm just trying to see if I can clearly define an X from the belt buckle.
But really the most contrast is on Mondo.
Yeah.
His face.
Yeah, he's popping because because there's so much more black and shiny black around him.
There's so much going on around him that it kind of like gets washed away. And like if you look at this cover, you squint your eyes, like his face pops out.
Yeah, because you know, as we've been talking about rules, but you know, if you do it right, you can break them, right? Should the focal point of a cover be on the bottom left corner? Probably not, but if you're Michael Golden, you can make that work.
Yeah. And okay, so what do you guys think of this? Like, because this isn't as clear cut as that last one.
Yeah, that's right. It's not.
Yeah.
This might be a reach, but you know, Banshee's elbow. You take his elbow, and then from Banshee's elbow, that's a rectangle at the top left corner within a rectangle.
I think they might all be.
And then if you take, is that Mondo in the bottom corner? So from Mondo's head to his forefinger and then down, that's another square in the bottom right corner too.
I think it might, the front cover might actually conform to the Fibonacci spiral starting at whoever the woman with the long purple hair is. Who is that?
Monet.
Okay.
It's Monet.
Yeah, I think if you spiral out from her, like up and around, that's the composite. Like that's the focus. Is like, well, you should be tracking all of them in this swoop.
Then what do you think of? So Banshee and Mondo are both the same size, and they're the top corners of the page.
Yeah,
opposite each other, right?
It's almost like this waveform, starting at Emma Frost and then down and up. Yeah, I don't know.
These ones are really playing with me, though.
Yeah, there's so much going on.
When you're trying to see the rhyme or reason in something like this,
it's so hard with such a huge cast of characters.
Yeah,
but like this one has the leading lines, whereas like this one they kind of disappear, and the leading lines are leading you directly to this wolf thing. So
yeah.
And like you have a lot of white here with the sync effect that just kind of gets destroyed and turned into noise with this digital. So yeah, I don't know. Very interesting looking cover though. Like very beautiful. This one though, what do you guys think of this one?
Yeah, I love it.
I think this is a great example of contrast.
Yes, because it's the same thing with that Doctor Strange Ghost Rider thing, where the city is like, I mean, this is what 90% black.
Yeah.
You can if you start from Archangel, and I love that drawing of Archangel where he's in free fall with the feathers from his wings are all in disarray. But if you start the golden ratio from that corner, it does spiral out using his wings.
Right. Yeah. You get this arc right here.
Yeah.
I mean, Sabretooth is definitely the focal point, right?
Yeah, but I love the use of the optic blast to kind of draw you around into the double wide cover. Like if you're just looking at the front of it, be like, wait, where the hell is that going? Oh, I see now.
Yeah, it's a really cool cover.
But also the cityscape, is it not all closing in on Archangel?
It is, yeah. It's all drawing
right?
in
So it's
towards
all
the
spiraling. Yeah, and it's
and
kind of
it's
spiraling out from Archangel.
yeah, and that spiral is giving him the feel of he's not flying. It's like he's tumbling downwards as well.
Yeah. So yeah, he did some Exiles covers, and
The Mutant X covers are great. Are you getting to that?
this is an interesting thing where, like, oftentimes you have to hand something in to the solicitations before they're done, and he was not complete with this, and so the solicitation went out, and then the final cover had more highlights. Either that, or he handed it in and then said, a month later, said, "Actually, give that back to me. I want to do a little bit more."
But he actually drew in the rocks on fire. They're like the fire
it's
ring.
raining.
He drew that in after.
Yeah.
And here we get the black and white and the color, which even when he's doing digital coloring, he's still maintaining his style where he takes the entire background and makes it all the one color.
Yeah.
So, and that's like an exercise in contrast. And these are really cool Mutant X covers, eh?
Yeah, the Mutant X stuff is great.
I like the framing that both of these have. That's good.
Yeah. Which is something we haven't talked about, but it's fun to do circular frames, to do circular covers, but they're not easy to pull off.
No.
Like there's a lot of circular framing here. And these are just very cool. So this is sort of like leading you directly to Wolverine's face there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the length of him pushing you forward as well.
Yeah, good body weight to him. Now this is interesting because we're getting into the 2000s by this point. So you see he's stripping back a little bit of the detail and focusing more on the color and using a lot less blacks than he would have like 10 years earlier.
Yeah.
And these covers are very Kirby influenced.
Whoa.
Yeah, I love these ones too.
That's cool.
And yeah, he did a Quicksilver cover. A lot of these were hard to find. Like I couldn't find a color version of that. And a lot of these you can't find like high res versions. But yeah, he did a couple of Spider-Man covers. So yeah, we're in the 2000s because we're in Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Just so much detail, and then it's all sort of like pushed back in the colors.
Drop it out. Wow.
Oh, and here's these out of order because here's another double page spread for
Wolverine 96, totally badical.
This was a great one. I really love this one.
Is that what is this giant robot? It's from the 70s, I want to say. Oh, Red Ronin. What am I talking about? It's right there. Red Ronin's Rage.
Oh yeah, I'm not familiar with Red Ronin.
It was I think it was a spinoff of when Marvel had the Godzilla license in the 70s.
Cool. So now look at this. Like, look at Colossus here. If he had drawn this 10 years earlier, he would have put a great deal of lighting to sell that metal form.
Yeah.
But he's got more control with Photoshop and with coloring at this point, and he's kind of like experimenting with stripping a lot of that away. There's the only black parts, like the only spot blacks here are on Storm.
Yeah, not even on
unusual for him.
Yeah, not even on Nightcrawler, which usually he's quite heavily in shadow.
Yeah. I do wonder why he made Colossus barefoot.
Because this is a recreation of the Abbey Road cover, and Paul McCartney in that position famously is not wearing shoes.
But Wolverine is wearing shoes, and is that?
Oh, so the original, I guess the concept for the Abbey Road cover is it's a funeral procession. There's Lennon in white as the preacher. I can't remember what Ringo's supposed to be, but then there's Paul as the corpse. He doesn't wear shoes anymore because he's free of these earthly bonds, and then George is behind him in like workman's clothes as like the gravedigger.
Taylor, are you a Beatlemaniac?
I'm not. No. Like so many things in my life, I'm an enthusiast, not an expert.
Very cool. The amount of thought put in there that you don't even really realize until you investigate. But like, again with this second cover, like not a lot of spot blacks, just like leaning heavily into the color. And then we get into the late 2000s, and
oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, very much. This looks like from the digital era. Like he is, he's a 60s, 70s kid, and he's learning new skills.
Yeah. I mean, you got it, right?
And this is the era of Marvel where they wanted iconic images. They didn't want
magazine
story
covers. Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted the potential to turn any of these things into posters or just to use them in perpetuity rather than have them story based, which I don't think he was fully comfortable with, but that's what the editor wanted, and he's a professional, so it was iconic covers all the way. That was part of the Quesada regime.
Yep. Trade paperback. Like we should be able to take any of these and put it on the front of a trade.
Yeah. Oh, and going back in time a bit, he did
it's
like
your
this,
boy.
Yeah, this is Jason Pearson's Hero got to do the 4 covers for his creator-owned book, Body Bags. So he also did a series of Jurassic Park covers, which are pretty fun. And this episode is super long, so we'll just like skim through these really quickly. But these are a lot of fun. Very story-based. Like you can look at these and see what story he's trying to sell you. They're not just like again, going back to the iconic imagery.
Yeah, man. Now I'm just wondering, why aren't there more Jurassic Park comics? That'd be rad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Jurassic Park wasn't relevant for a good 10, 15 years, and then that new franchise started. Like it came back with huge.
Yeah, that sucks. It sucks that that's the case. One of the best movies ever made.
Yes, Psycho Circus covers
for McFarlane's. Yeah, I think McFarlane was producing these at the time.
Lady Rawhide and
Out of the Vortex. That's got a very Mignola feel.
Yeah,
that pose.
Then he did a bunch of stuff for Wildstorm. So he which the Wildstorm people, they were in love with his stuff. So 2000.
I love that Midnighter cover.
Yeah.
The which one? Oh, the Midnighter? Yeah.
Yeah, like this is a crazy Team 7 cover. With you can't really fully appreciate it as much when it's colored. Like just the amount of work he did. And I love the the stamp he had. Please return this original art to Michael Golden. Because he was back then you mailed your original art in and they scanned it in the studio. Then you had to and 6 months would go by and you'd be like, well, that was never sent back. Well, I got to make some phone calls. And then some people years go by and you realize that it never came back. You gotta keep track of this stuff, and you gotta have one of those stamps. I had this Union comic when I was a kid. So
Union.
Yeah, and then he did some crazy double page these are for the source book, Wildstorm Universe source book, where you had to draw. He was required to draw every single character. Because this was a source book, and so here you can see they cut everything out, and identify every character here. Just so much work,
man alive. Yeah.
And then here we have the cover to his Excess book, and I don't know. I guess this was a sketch.
It's a very European feel to it.
Yeah, so that was a lot of covers. There's a whole bunch we missed, but we don't want to go too long. So how was your art week, guys?
I was quite taken with the idea of Kristar, the Crystal Warrior, and his saga therein. And one of the things that really stood out to me as I was going over these before the episode was the use of color. So this has been my attempt to use contrast and focal points and stuff on paper that once again is just not meant to hold these colors. But I don't know. I'm surprisingly pleased with this.
I like how you committed to the wing coming over the head there. That's the head, right?
Yeah.
It does. It works for me. I like it.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's kind of like a in medias res type of shot where it's kind of like halfway through an action.
Yeah.
Like the flap of a wing. I love stuff like that.
So my question, Taylor, is: are you going to give this golden ratio trick a try?
I might, yeah. Just in order to, at the very beginning, at least to check, like, well, what could I improve about this? Because, boy, when I come up with an idea, what I'm really trying to drill into myself is, just because it's the first idea doesn't mean it's the best. Maybe check it out first. In one of the great things about Clip Studio is there's the ability to just quickly flip with the button
Use
to
that a lot.
check, like, does everything look correct? But I think, yeah, having a golden ratio overlay could be quite useful.
Yeah, I don't think I use it as a tool much, but I think I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
You gotta give it a try, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, because, like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. So yeah, I obviously my art week was drawing more assorted crisis events. So
On sale now.
again, it's in stores now. It's an ongoing series, and yeah,
You just finishing up number 6? What do you want?
Oh, I'm done number 6. So now moving on to the next issue. So we're getting started on arc 2 right now.
Hell yeah.
Arc 1 is the first 5 issues. So yeah, we're getting well into arc 2. So expect that maybe late this year or early next year, not sure.
Right on. Right on.
And guys, make sure you get in on that Kickstarter that Taylor's got going on.
Yes, Dauntless Showcase #1.
So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.